Okay, this is not a video I was expecting to be making, but tonight something happened after my live stream, and for the first time as a creator on YouTube, I'm actually worried about the survival of my channel. So at the end of the stream tonight, I was on Twitter doing my regular routine. I didn't actually record the stream in OBS because of the Mariners loss. I was a little bit out of sorts. I forgot to hit record on OBS. So I was going to just download the video after the stream. Then I noticed there was a notification in studio of a community guidelines violation. Now here's where it gets weird, because the timestamp of the violation was in the very last minute of the video. Now the very last minute of the video is when my goodbye placard is up. There's music playing, so I wasn't actually on stream. Now, it's possible that it showed me the last minute because they decided to delete the video, but here's where it gets pretty shady. Because the violation was for harassment and cyberbullying. That's what it said. And it specifically mentioned something about mocking a person's death or reveling in a person's death, which initially upon seeing that, I thought, okay, maybe this has something to do with Charlie Kirk, because this is a big thing happening right now where if you say the wrong thing about Charlie Kirk, there seems to be some type of retribution coming from either people getting you fired from your job or platforms removing your content. I know when I talked about Trump and Epstein, TikTok made it nearly impossible to make content about that without it restricting it. So there's a lot of sort of censorship around these right-wing individuals that appears to be going on. But here's the clincher. I didn't cover any Charlie Kirk tonight. Tonight's stream covered a small handful of topics. The first thing we covered was Trump blowing up the fishing boats and the repatriated survivors from one of those military strikes and the whole situation of Venezuela and its oil becoming our 51st state. After that, we covered that Christian nationalist pastor, the one who was talking about slavery and some of the more outrageous comments he made about a, spiritual war against the demons that are Democrats. And we did a whole section on the evolution of Christian nationalism, Project 2025, the Heritage Foundation, the Trump admin, and what's going on with this, weird civil war kind of mentality that's been bubbling up in our political discourse, mostly aimed at us leftists. So we covered that. Then we covered Joe Rogan spreading misinformation about the No Kings protests and him talking about George Soros funding this thing. And lastly, we did an extended bit about the Epstein case, about Virginia Giuffre's book coming out, and a 𝗙cie𝗶𝗹𝗀 appearance on CNN talking about Epstein, the Epstein cover-up, Alex Acosta. Now, of course, there may have been some sideline references to Charlie Kirk. He often comes up. People in chat will often talk about him. I do have very strong feelings about the man. I have absolutely never reveled in his death. I've been pretty clear about how I don't support political violence. But I do have very strong feelings about Charlie Kirk, his methodology with young people, and how that relates to this Christian nationalism that has been occupying some of the higher levels of the US government. Now, the thing that is so nerve-wracking about this is I've spent the last year and a half busting my ass to make this channel profitable to where I'm actually making a decent living. And thanks to you guys, we've been successful at that. However, the lack of clarity around this community guidelines warning, as they put it, is what really bothered me. Because I haven't gotten any direct info about YouTube as to what actually was the thing I said that inspired this deletion of content and this community guidelines warning. Now, I did take a 7-question training, which talked about, if you're watching somebody burn an effigy at a protest and you cover it, is that a strike? Or, there was a question about a woman talking about the death of someone, that was a strike, which made me think of the whole Charlie Kirk situation. Then there were there was another question about somebody, you know, at work being called a slur, and you're covering that. So there was like a slurs and political effigies and talking about death. There were these questions, but no direct line to what I said and how that related to this warning that if I get another one, that maybe my channel's going to disappear. And it's this lack of clarity and this sudden violation of community guidelines without warning, when, to be fair, I didn't actually operate any differently in last night's stream than I have in any of my streams. But then I found this little tidbit where it says, in some rare cases, we may remove content or issue other penalties when a creator repeatedly encourages abusive audience behavior. That doesn't apply to me. I haven't done anything remotely like that. Repeatedly targets, insults, and abuses a group based on protected group status across multiple uploads. That's really interesting, because now I have made quite a bit of content about Christian nationalists and the Christian influence in government. And I've made quite a bit of content about Charlie Kirk and about the culture of retribution and you know, attacks on people who have not responded to Charlie Kirk in the way that the right-wing powers that be want people to respond. Okay? And now I'm left to wonder, what exactly did they strike me for? Because here's where it gets bizarre. You always do get a chance to file an appeal. I filed an appeal. I wrote a very clear thing saying, hey guys, I'm not exactly sure what this strike is about. I'm receiving some hints from you that maybe it was about this, but I didn't actually cover that. Was it something I scrolled by on Twitter? Because, you know, there was that woman in Chicago who made those outrageous sort of, you know, mockery things related to the Kirk situation. But I didn't cover that. I didn't cover that at all. And I didn't talk about that, I don't think, tonight. I don't recall us talking about that. But my appeal was rejected in under 1 minute. It was like I sent it, instantaneous rejection. And again, no response, no timestamp, no clarity. So now what's crazy is I don't know if this is a warning shot from YouTube that I have been too outrageous in my coverage of the Christian nationalism, or I have been too outspoken in my feelings about Charlie Kirk or tpusa or Israel and Epstein and Palantir or what. But the threat is very clear. Like, YouTube has now given me a warning that lasts 90 days where another violation will become a strike, which would lead to a week of no uploads, which would lead to a very noticeable impact on my finances. But the lack of clarity means I don't know what I was talking about that led to the community guidelines strike. It almost feels like this whole warning and the deletion of that video is just a way of YouTube saying, hey, watch your step. And frankly, that makes me really nervous. I mean, my experience here at YouTube has been pretty good. You know, they have these community guidelines. You rate your videos, they get checked. Occasionally, things get pinged afterwards. The appeal process usually works, you know, pretty good. I've been pretty clear about where I stand. But the problem here is that I didn't make anything more outrageous last night than I have any other day on YouTube. But the reaction has been to definitely send a message, watch your step. Your channel, it could potentially be taken away. But now I'm at a very real risk here of having another strike about this unknown issue. Like, If I talk about Christian nationalism in the government, is that harassing Christians? Is that, I mean, if I talk about Charlie Kirk, I talk about my very real feelings about the type of human being he was and the impact he's had on young people here in America. Is that going to lead to the next strike? So I have reached out to somebody who does have a YouTube rep, and I don't know if I'm going to have any luck doing that. But I will say this. This is my first very real coming up against the regime, if you will, inside YouTube, with an absolute lack of clarity about what specific thing I violated and how. Which normally when you have a video that gets pinged, there's a timestamp and a pretty clear, you're not left to divine it. It's pretty clear down to the section where it shows you this is the violation. Then you can snip it out and remove it. But in this instance, there was no option to snip out and remove a section of my video. If something violated something, oh, that section, okay, great. You should be able to snip it out. Then I'm very clear what it is. You give me the warning, and at least I know how to progress forward. But here, now, I feel like I'm on some eggshells here. And frankly, I'm a little nervous about what this means, both in the context of the discourse of my channel and keeping my channel alive, and a greater context of what we're going through here in America, where it feels like there is a very real layer of oppression that is coming down on our shoulders, where, are we going to end up in 𝗙ecie𝗶𝗆𝗆 or alligator Alcatraz for being Democrats, for being identified as demons, or saying something about a right-wing political figure, while at the same time, our social media, we are just bombarded by misinformation and disinformation. The lies here in Portland, the lies are overwhelming, trying to get the National Guard here, trying to make it seem like there's riots and fires, and just unchecked lies and unchecked, outrageous, violent rhetoric coming from leaders like the president and certainly big right-wing influencers, just untamed rhetoric. And there doesn't seem to be any consequences for them. But now we're getting community guidelines, warnings, and strikes without any clarity. And guys, I'd be lying if I didn't say I'm a little nervous about the future, but we're going to keep going. All right. I will update you if I get any information further in on this. But in the meantime, I'm going to keep using my voice, and I guess I'm going to have to be extra careful with my words. The fact that this happened, though, in a live stream, and they're not notifying me again about the specific thing that I said, is pretty problematic for me, because it could be any number of things, and I just don't know. So who knows? But thank you guys for being here. We're going to keep forging ahead, and we're going to see what happens. All right. Appreciate you. I'll see you soon. I hope.